John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski. Well, you know, Corey, he's a household name. First of all, Corey was the campaign manager for the Trump for President campaign, guiding him to the nomination. He's also the author of 2 mega best-selling New York Times bestsellers, Let Trump Be Trump, get that, Amazon or your favorite bookstore, and Trump's Enemies, which basically was a prophetic book. Let Trump Be Trump kind of told the story. Trump's Enemies told the prophecy of what would happen, and they nailed everything right down to a gnat's tail. They got it all right. Got to read that book, Trump's Enemies. Amazon, your favorite bookstore, B. Dalton, or you can go to my website, johnfredericksradio.com. Joining us now, back from a much well-earned and deserved vacation with his family, Corey Lewandowski. Hey, Corey, great to have you.
Hey, John, thanks for having me back on.
So Joe Biden enters the race, Corey. Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, we call him Creepy Joe. He goes to Pennsylvania yesterday. I just thought this was amazing. First of all, he apologizes to Anita Hill after he said he didn't have anything to apologize for. I guess next he'll apologize for being a white male or something. But he apologizes for that. Then he goes to Pennsylvania touting his jobs plan, which he doesn't really have one. But here's the irony. So in Pennsylvania right now, unemployment 3.9%. When he was vice president, it was 6%. In Pittsburgh, where he was, unemployment 3.2%. Wages at an all-time high. When he was vice president, Pittsburgh unemployment 5.9%. Joe Biden lost 50,000 manufacturing jobs as vice president. Trump has gained 125. Tell me the math here that I'm missing, Corey.
Well, John, this is called revisionist history, is what we call this, right? This is the Democrats' formula for math. What they want to tell people is that under the Obama administration, things were great. Yeah, they were great if you love 1.2% growth rate and high unemployment numbers and low, job opportunities. So they're trying to relive what really never happened. This is revisionist history. Don't forget, for the first 2 years of the Obama-Biden administration, they blamed George W. Bush for the economy. And then for the first 2 years of the Trump administration, after they deregulated the government, after they cut taxes, after they're stimulating small businesses and putting people back to work, they're taking credit for it. Because the truth is, Joe Biden, as the vice president of the United States, owns all of the failed policies of Barack Obama. He doesn't want to admit it. Barack Obama has not endorsed his candidacy. And the truth becomes that when you look back at Joe's 36 years in the U.S. Senate and 8 years as the vice president, you have to ask yourself, what is your single greatest accomplishment, Joe? For 4 decades in public service, what have you done? You've done nothing to help women. You've done nothing to help minorities. You've never passed a signature piece of legislation. And the thing that you are most known for is the Anita Hill debacle, which first you apologized for, then you unapologized, and then you called, and then you said you didn't call, and he still doesn't have an answer of what really transpired there. So the truth is, the American people are going to get to know Joe Biden very, very well, and they're going to get to remember that under the Obama-Biden years, the economy was stagnant. Our competitors were taking advantage of us from a trade perspective. There were no new job opportunities. And this president and this president alone is the one who changed all that in 2.5 years, and it wasn't Joe Biden.
No, actually, it was the opposite. And, Corey, I want to get to the jobs numbers, and to the growth rate that came out on Friday, 3.2% again. Now, remember, this is in the quarter where we had the government shutdown. Remember, where all the naysayers and all the economists said what a disaster it was going to be. All the predictions on Wall Street by the gangster banksters are telling us that the economy is in for a recession. It's in for a slowdown. We can't maintain 3%. Inflation is going to go up, right? All the economic Keynesian, anti-Trump, never-Trumper naysayers. Now we get another report out, 3.2% growth in the face of a government shutdown, right? Where everybody thought it would be much lower than that. And the Democrats, they not only do they have no response, Corey, they don't even mention it like it didn't exist.
Well, John, it's amazing because today is only Tuesday, right? Today's only Tuesday. No one is talking about it. Can you imagine for 1 second if this administration would have put a 1-up on the board like Barack Obama did, a 1.2, a 1.4, a 1.5, they would be saying, this president claimed to be the jobs president. He's not the job president. The economy's slowing. I saw 2 headlines that said, maybe the recession will never come. And then the subheadline was, but if it does, Donald Trump is in trouble, right? They will never give him credit because this president has done everything possible to rid government over-regulation off the backs of small business owners so that they can make long-term capital investments. And look, John, the other thing that we've heard is my tax returns are so much lower this year, it's not fair. I'm not getting as much money back. Well, the reason you're not getting as much money back is because you're not paying as much money in taxes every week when you get your paycheck because the president has lowered your tax liability every week. And so, look, they don't want to talk about that, but what you heard Sleepy Joe talking about yesterday was all these corporate America greed and that you're not feeling the benefit of the tax cuts. It's just not true. They have no message to combat the success of this president who has stimulated this economy to be the hottest economy in the world, to have the lowest unemployment for African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans ever recorded, 600,000 new manufacturing jobs, 7 million new jobs created since he was elected. This is the place that every country wants to come and invest into because we're hot, we are on fire, and everybody else is slowing down because this president said, hey, if you're going to charge us tariffs to go into your country, it's going to be reciprocal, which means you want to put 25% on our products going in, we'll put 25% on your products going in. Joe Biden could have did it. He did nothing. And look, Joe has union support, and that's perfectly fine. But the rank-and-file union members, and we saw this in the 2016 election,
right,
John, we saw that the rank-and-file union members no longer follow the union bosses of being told what to do, and that is partially why Donald Trump was successful in the 2016 election, because those rank-and-file union members, they want jobs, they want opportunity, they want fair trade deals, and Obama and Biden had the chance to do it, and they failed the unions, and now he's clinging to them as their last level, as his last chance for support.
We have the union workers, rank and file. They have the union bosses who get the money. That's basically the difference. That's why I'd much rather be in President Trump's situation than in Joe Biden, who has to kowtow to these various leaders, but they don't have the rank and file. We showed that in 2016. John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager for the Donald Trump for President campaign, engineered the biggest upset in history, authored 2 New York Times best-selling books, Let Trump Be Trump, got to buy them both, and Trump's Enemies. Corey, let's get to the president's executive order yesterday, ordering his administration to change the way we do asylum. Number one, he says, look, we got to get every asylum case adjudicated in 180 days. I don't think anybody would argue with that. He's also saying, if you want to get asylum now, you have to pay a fee because this is a huge cost, a huge burden on the taxpayer. And he said we're also diverting resources from asylum to legitimate Border Patrol crossings. He's also called on Congress to change the asylum laws, which are being abused by illegals. How do you think this plays out?
John, this is once again the notion of putting America first. That's what this president has talked about now for the last 3 years, first during the campaign and now as the president, which says if you want to come to this country, there is a path to do it. We are the greatest country in the world. We're the most generous country on the planet. We want legal immigration. But if you want to come here and seek asylum, there is a process. And what we have seen, John, unfortunately, in the last 3 or 4 days is countries like Guatemala and El Salvador are now literally running radio ads in their country saying, we can help you achieve the American dream. Call this coyote and he will smuggle you across the border. We will tell you what to say. And this president said, look, it's not acceptable. We cannot continue to take people into this country who don't do so properly. So if you want to seek asylum, then there is a path to do that. But in order to do that, you're going to go through the proper procedures. You're going to pay your fair share. And if you don't want to seek asylum the proper way, there is no path for you here. We have to stop these countries from allowing these coyotes to be advertising on the radio shows saying that we can get you into the United States. We're giving foreign aid to these countries. This president has already built over 40 miles of the wall on the southern border. It's 1,000 miles that we need. He's continuing to build more every single day. But the truth is, John, we have a broken immigration system. The Democrats have no interest in fixing that system, and the Republicans failed us for 2 years that we had the majorities in Congress. And this president is 100% resolved in one issue. He's going to secure our country. He's going to make sure that when he put his hand on the Bible, he took a pledge to protect all citizens from enemies, both foreign and domestic. And that means making sure Americans are safe. That means giving us the same rights and privileges that every other country in the world has, John, which is protecting their borders. Can you imagine for 1 second if we were any other country, this would never be tolerated? The president said, if you want to seek asylum, you will do so the right way. You will pay for it appropriately. We have to make sure that our men and women who are patrolling the border every single day have the resources necessary to be successful. And I don't think it's unreasonable, but the Democrats have no interest in solving a national crisis right now.
Well, Corey Lewandowski, not only no interest, but I guess the young millennial leader of the Democratic wing, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said the other day that all the media picked up that she doesn't even think there should be undocumented anything, that basically if you get into the country, you should be treated like you're in the country. And so there's no in the shadows, there's no illegality, there's no nothing. You just come in, and if you're in, you're in. I mean, that was not disputed by a single Democratic candidate running for president. Not one. Why?
Because they can't, John, because they are so far left that the American people are going to see what the Democratic Party really stands for, which is open borders, free immigration, free everything to everybody. And if you're a person who wakes up every day and goes to work like I do or you do, and John, I know what your schedule is. I know how early you get up. I know how much effort you put in to get your show ready.
Thank you.
Right? You don't believe that everything is free in life. You don't believe that just because you step foot into this country that makes you an American citizen. I don't believe it, and the American people don't believe it. But they're so far left that as soon as you start to criticize AOC and her group of far left-leaning liberals, they're not even progressives. They're so far left, John, they're actually socialists. And Bernie Sanders is proud to be a socialist, but that's not what this country was founded on. That's not the principles that we have upheld for hundreds of years here. I'll tell you what, John, I have the privilege to travel around this country a lot, and I see men and women every day who get up, they go to work. They want to leave this country to their next generation, their children, their grandchildren, better than it was left to them. That's always what I was taught. And the notion that everything is free was never, ever bestowed upon me by my grandparents and my parents. And, I read this great story yesterday in a little newspaper in New Hampshire. And this kid who's now a kid, he's 45 years old, and he's started a business, and he's been running it for about 20 years now. It was a logging company. And he said, he has a small box on his desk, the newspaper story said, and it said the magic words of success are inside this box. And you open up the box, and it said hard work. That's what the magic is in this country. It's called hard work. And people who come to this country illegally don't follow the rules. They shouldn't have the same privileges as people who do follow the rules. And this notion that nobody on the left is willing to push back on AOC or that group of people or condemn the congresswoman from Minnesota or the congresswoman from Michigan is because they're so afraid of political correctness that they're not willing to stand up for what they really believe in, and they let those things slide. And it's shameful, and that's why this president is more successful than ever. And, John, that's why he's going to be reelected by a larger electoral margin than he was in 2016.
Corey, we're going to win again, only bigger. There's no question about it. And all you had to do was really look at Biden launching his campaign in Pittsburgh yesterday, where unemployment all-time low, wages all-time high, Pennsylvania unemployment all-time low. And he's talking about there's too many tax cuts for the rich. Meantime, the average person with 4 people in their family saved a minimum of $2,900 in the Trump tax cuts. I mean, the whole thing is a lie, and eventually people see through it. I don't know where the Democrats are going with this, but, Biden seems to be their answer, and I think his campaign has been off to a disastrous start, and it's only the beginning. And you got to remember, Corey, Joe Biden's run for president 3 other times. All 3, his campaign has not only been a underperformed operation, all 3 times his campaign completely imploded. Right? Guy,
well, he's 1% Joe. I mean, look, and when I don't say 1% because he's, the richest in the country, he's 1% because that's been his average percentage in the presidential elections since he's run, going back for the last 30 years. Look, the American people know Joe Biden, and he comes off as aw shucks kind of, the crazy uncle who sniffs people's hair and gets too close in their personal space on a regular basis. But the truth is, he owns Barack Obama's failed policies. He owns Benghazi. He owns all of the things that took place for the previous 8 years of the last administration. And the fact that Barack Obama refuses to even endorse Joe Biden should tell you everything there is to know about this guy. This guy is a sleepy, low-energy guy who's got a whole bunch of problems. And look, by the way, John, let's just be clear. The Trump operation, the Trump machine, has not even started on Joe Biden yet. These are his friends who are killing him every day.
Right.
And wait until we start talking about him and his son and the relationship that they have doing business overseas where, Joe threatened to withhold billions of dollars in U.S. government money if his son didn't receive special contracts and board spots. Look, that's all going to come out, and there's a lot there that Joe doesn't want to talk about. He thinks that 8 years under the Obama administration is a positive. It's a complete negative by every single metric, whether it's economically, homeland security, national security. They decimated our military. They got us involved in places and conflicts that we never should have been. They've never been accountable. They have no support. And Joe is running the old playbook, and it's going to get him the same 1% he got in the last 3 times he ran for president.
1% Joe, hashtag 1% Joe. I'm going to start that from Corey Lewandowski. Corey, I like that. Also, how stupid do you think we are when they come out and say, I asked the president not to endorse me. I asked Barack Obama to withhold his endorsement. Like you would withhold the endorsement of somebody who could do 4 fundraisers for you in 4 days and raise, I don't know, $1 billion or something. I mean, it's insane that he would do that. Everybody knows Obama doesn't want to endorse him. And so they spin that one like we're all stupid. Then you've got, as you mentioned, you've got all these family issues. None of these have been scrutinized. But I tell you the other thing, Bernie, Joe Biden got a free ride from the legacy lying fake news media in 2008 and 2012 because they were protecting Obama. He's expecting the same treatment. And it's analogous to exactly what John McCain thought he was going to get in 2008 when he ran the second time, which was a love affair from the media. They're going to attack him mercilessly this time because they want a progressive candidate. I don't think they're prepared for any of this.
Joe is not prepared for it. Don't forget, the only race that was competitive in Joe Biden's life was in 1972 when he ran for the U.S. Senate from Delaware. It's the only race that's ever been competitive. After that, he has never had a competitive race. He slid through the U.S. Senate in 5 re-elections, 1 election, 5 re-elections for 36 years, never having run the competitive state. And that's why people like Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren think that they have a chance of being the president because they come from these places where the far left continues to dominate. But it's not real America. John, when I travel around and I get to do it with the president or I get to do it on my own, and I see how much change this president has implemented to give people more opportunities. When I talk to small business owners and they say because of the deregulatory environment, because of the tax cuts, we're making capital investments. We had a firm that had 3 people and now has 7 people. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you've doubled the amount of employees and you've taken more opportunity and liability, and you're doing that because you believe in what the president is doing. Joe Biden has never done that. He's never signed the front of a paycheck. He's only signed the back of a paycheck. He's been a government employee his entire life, and now all of a sudden he's closing his foundation because he doesn't want to actually disclose all the money that he's made after he's left public office. And the truth is that Joe Biden's policies have hurt America more than it's helped America, and the American people know that. And when Joe stands before those people, he will never be progressive enough for the Democrats. He will never have done enough for women or for minorities in his 36 years in the U.S. Senate and his 8 years as the vice president. And that will be reflected in the polls when he stands on that stage and has to account for those things. And if he thinks he's going to get a pass from the media, he is sorely mistaken, because his friends, and I use that term loosely, in the U.S. Senate, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and every other person who's running, are going to take square aim at Joe Biden. And I will make a prediction that not only will he not be the nominee, I don't think he'll be in this race after the third or fourth primary. I think he's going to lose those places, and that will be the end of the Joe Biden regime.
Man, Corey, I agree with you 100%. I don't think he wins Iowa. I don't think he wins New Hampshire. He loses in South Carolina. He's out. John Fredericks Radio Network. Corey Lewandowski, great to have you with us, Corey, as always. Thank you for that insight. Curtis Ellis coming up on the John Fredericks Radio Network. Let Trump Beat Trump. You can order it. B. Dalton, your favorite bookstore, Amazon, Trump's Enemies. Gotta buy it, or they're both on my website. That's the easiest, johnfredericksradio.com. Thank you, Corey, for being with us.
Thank you, John.